May these teachings be uplifting for all those who have ears to hear. May your loving embrace be felt by all those present here and all those connected to us. May we feel inspired and encouraged. In Jesus' name, so be it. So, giving continuation to his continuous study of the different parables of Jesus, today Leo is bringing us the parable of the widow's mite. If you haven't already, you can go back on our YouTube channel, Spiritus Network, watch the other videos of Leo giving his lectures on the other parables, which are just as fascinating and interesting and enlightening for our minds. Leo, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. As Kirsten was saying, we have a full house. She almost sound like the captain. We have a full flight tonight. So yeah, but no, I'm glad to see everyone here. Daniel, when it came in, he was like, "Man, we have a full house today because we're counting because of the fundraiser and everything." It's like, and he was joking with it, but it's not for you. It's because of the food. So I was like, look, whether it's for me or the food, it's a win-win situation. Hopefully, the mentors of the house will bless everyone and give everyone the blessings of the house, and hopefully, the word that we will actually share here today as well, for many of us, is just a reminder, but it will be a good reminder as well, right? And if not, hopefully, if I can ask a little bit, is that each one of us learn a little bit from one another as well. This is a great continuation of the work that we decide to do, sharing the Christ teachings, right? In most of the cases, I think we only shared once that it was not a parable yet, but there will be more, many more to come, hopefully. And tonight, as Kirsten was saying, the parable of the widow's mite. I will try to keep it short, not in the sense that we want to make it fast or we want to get to the food. For those of us who will be watching us later today, we're actually, so we understand what we're saying. Today we have our monthly fundraiser in the house, so that's why we're talking about food and all these things. But for us to get the important part of it and then apply it, if you will, right? The best way possible. I would like to ask a question. It's a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer. But if you answer it, it's okay too. If I were to summon each one of us today, right now, and say that all the money that you have in your checking account, all your money that you have in your savings account, were to be wiped away to help a good cause, how would you feel? I don't. You want to say what would you? How would you feel, Kirsten? Since you said it will be a long. Well, I'll make it even better. It's a rhetorical question. Yes. So, what if I were to tell you that if that were to happen, that nobody would not know, or for whatever cause that is, who gave A, B, or C? That your name wouldn't have been mentioned at all for whatever cause that is, for whatever help that is. Pretty tough, isn't it? Right? So let's say that it gets better. Let's say that you have just lost your job and the same thing were to happen, that all your money is being taken to fund a good cause. I'm not saying it's something bad, a good cause, right? How would you feel? Pretty tough, isn't it? Right? And we'll see why we're asking these questions. But I want to get there is a purpose behind it, not only for us to think, but really to bring the feeling that this message ought to bring to each one of us, right? We're talking about the widow's mite, right? And we're talking about the widow. And if you look at the picture here, on this one here, there is actually not showing, but there are other pictures that it will show. Let us do this. Let us actually go into the actual parable and try to understand a little bit. So the parable can actually be found in two of the Gospel of Luke, and it is said that as Jesus looked up, he saw the rich putting their gifts into the temple treasury. He also saw a poor widow put into 2 very small copper coins. Truly I tell you, he said, this poor widow has put in more than all the others. All these people gave their gifts out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in all she had to live on. And then on Mark, the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12, we'll see that Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put and watched the crowd of putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put 2 very small coins, copper coins, worth of a few cents. Calling his disciples to him, Jesus said, truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. They all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on. Okay, so we have these two gospels. They're really not much of a difference, and I like to usually bring and mention a little bit about the gospel because sometimes we see some variation depending on the gospel, depending on who wrote it. So it kind of gives a better insight of what we can learn from them as well. Because if we go as the deeper that we can go, and there are many scholars that will also analyze these gospel and tell us that it comes with a little bit with the taste, with the interpretation of the those who were actually bringing the gospel to us, the one who wrote the gospel, right? But these are beautiful teachings, right? We are seeing someone, a widow, giving more money than those who were rich. But why is she giving more money? Why is she bringing more money? All that she had, right? One thing is for us to give what we're not lacking. The problem is when we have to give something that perhaps we don't have that much, right? And we give freely. There's either, there are several hypotheses that we can bring here. She was mentally ill. Well, just give the money, right? But for somebody who is actually in that position, right? The person better know what they're doing, especially when the stomach, right, is growling at us and say, I'm hungry, right? And if we think about a widow as well, what the first thing that comes to mind besides losing her partner, that there may be children involved, right? So all these things, if we start adding to it, it gets better and better, right? When I say better and better, in terms of she's really giving what she don't have, what she does not have. So I want to dive a little bit because this, at least to me, and I'm quite sure many of us, we try to understand a little bit what the widow's mite may be and where the words came from. And I also would like to highlight a couple of things. This passage of the widow's mite is actually mentioned in this chapter 13 of the Gospel according to Spiritism. As you can see, and I want to highlight some of these elements because we're going to touch on some of them, is that do good without ostentation, hidden misfortune, the widow's mite, invite the poor and the lame, give without expecting recompense, The Spirit's teachings, material charity and moral charity, beneficence, compassion, orphans, beneficence repaid with ingratitude, excuse beneficence. Why do I bring this whole thing here? Because and this is me studying and having this aha moment, right? Because what follows is really interesting as well. Number one, with the parable, we see the what and the how. We see what she's giving and how she's giving, right? It's it's out of joy. Here's what I have, you know, and I don't even know what's going to happen with what I'm giving, with the much that I'm giving, because we know for her was very scarce, right? So it's the what and the how, and that's something that I also would like everyone to focus on when we're going through this. So what follows is interesting as well, because Kardec then talks about honor your father and mother on chapter 14, and talks about the filial devotion, who is my mother and who are my brothers, corporeal kinship and spiritual kinship, and the Spirit's teachings talking about children's ingratitude and family ties. It gets better. Check this out. Then Kardec comes and brings chapter 15, talking about without charity there is no salvation. What's the point that I would like to make? And then the we'll see some of the elements as well here, very brief, of chapter 15. What is needed in order to be saved? Parable of the Good Samaritan. We have covered that as well. The greatest command, the need for charity according to Paul. Without church, the church there is no salvation. Without the truth there is no salvation. And then the Spirit's teaching, without charity there is no salvation. For us parents, how do we give to our kids? Do we ask for anything back? No. So look at the connection. He brings the widow's mite talk in many of the Spirit's teachings over there too. Talks about the what, the how, right? Asking, giving without, expecting anything back, right? And then he comes and covers honor thy father and thy mother. And it finishes with this idea of ingratitude from kids, from family ties. Not expecting anything, right? And if they're not grateful for what they're giving, for what we're giving them, right? And then we can include ourselves as well as children, because we have parents, right? So this also makes us think of how will we honor our father and our mother, right? Being grateful for what they give us. And many, many times we could have been not in that we wanted to cause any harm, but not being grateful enough for what they have done, right? Even through our actions of honoring them. But if we want to understand a little bit of this idea of giving freely, that is an example. And then he comes and talks about if you want the salvation, not salvation from anything else, but salvation from ourselves, let us give. Let us be charitable, right? And I want to take another a point that I would like to make beforehand, and we even go dive a little bit more onto the parable. Giving is not just the material, and we're going to talk a little bit more, but I want to establish that from the get-go, right? It's a little bit too late now. It's 15 minutes into it, but it's not just material. It's everything that we can give, every little bit of that we can give ourselves, and this is covered in chapter 13 as well as chapter 15, for us to understand a little bit more. But we're going to make this connection a little bit more towards the end. So what the wrong button? Let us go back to the actual parable. I highlighted a couple of things here because when we talk about the widow's mite, what is the widow's mite? And the word can lead us to many things, right? We know that she gave in both of the gospel that she gave 2 very small copper coins, right? Only worthy a few cents. So mind you, this is part of a cent. Think of us breaking it down, a cent today, a penny today. It's a part of that. It's very, very small, very a small coin. This is what it looks like. A bronze mite, also known as lepton. The word mite actually came in the, if I'm not mistaken, the 1500s. It did not exist when the gospel were written. The word was actually introduced much later on through the different translation, or we can also call the oblum. It will see the óvulo in Portuguese and óvulo in English, right? Which oblum was actually a way to describe in Greek a small a quantity of money, right? And again, it's very small, as we can see here. But this is what it looks like. And the word might then comes down later. I think it was with King James um, version, that at that point the word already existed and the might was actually the same thing. So just for us not to be confused of what it is, so we may say, we may see widows contribution, we may see widow's mite, we may see the lepton in many different ways. But again, understanding that this is below what we would say even a penny today. The other thing that I would like to also remind everyone, and I would like to take to the other two, sorry, this picture over here. We have to talk, we have to analyze as well, and this is Leo speculating a little bit, that this is the locations of offerings that we're giving. They were not the same for men and women. We're talking about a Jewish temple, so things are separate, right? To keep it separate, right? So it's not that she was worried that anybody was actually seeing it, because it was very secluded. It was not together, right? Again, this is Leo's speculations. This is just me thinking and trying to go back to that moment and think or act with my thoughts how this woman was thinking, right? So just something for us to think about it, that it was separate, that the place of the offerings were definitely separate as well from where the men would come and bring their offerings as well. One another point that I wanted to also share with you, and this is something that I heard from George Alahar with one of his beautiful explanations of in terms of the widow's mite, right? That it was another aha moment as well. Have you ever done something for someone who passed, who died? It's scary, right? Scary. Think about it. Oh, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do charity for somebody who just died. And does the dead come back and pay you anything or repay you for anything? So this is a group of people. Forgive me if I'm saying this wrong, right? I think it's Havra Kaddish. Okay. This is actually a group of people. It's a holy society that is in the Jewish community. That what they do, they come and they help the deceased, the person who dies, to have a good burial, right? A respectful burial. And not only they help the individual who is dying, who has passed, right? And this is very physical as well. They come and they clean the body, they do the whole burial and everything. But they also have what is called a program for the widows, right? The kids of the one who have passed, and they have this assistance in the community. Every Jewish community will have the Haver Kaddish to help them, right? And through his explanation, because he knows quite a bit about it, he reminds us of something really interesting, that the money that these individuals they get is a donation, right? The widows, they get donations now from whoever is willing to help them to continue on with their lives and to help them grieve and everything. But they're also exempt of giving any money to charity. Zero. They have no need whatsoever to express anything to anybody or to give anything to anyone. And then it kind of gives us a different glimpse as well, understanding the culture, understanding what is behind the whole thing, right? How is she getting this money, right? And how exempt she is from this whole thing. So not only she's giving, but she's giving something that she doesn't have to do it, right? It's not like even that. Imagine, I mean, we can even extrapolate a little bit and say, she has a lot of money, right? And she doesn't have to give, or any of us would have to give, but she did it anyways. Another thought behind this is that whether large or small, what would that money be used for? She didn't care. At the end of the day, she was giving to the temple. Maybe that money was perhaps going to be utilized to give to another widow. She didn't know. We don't know. But the truth of the matter is that she gave, and she gave whatever she had. And it was quite a bit for her compared to what was in her pocket, compared to or at being analyzed from the point of view that she that's all she had, right? And it was not extra like the other ones, as depicted on the actual gospels. So just food for thought for us to understand, because sometimes we can I to me, if we without knowing this, it's like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool. The lady went there, dropped 2 coins. But what was behind the scenes? What was the culture behind as well? So let's give a continuation to this, because there's a couple of things that I would like to add here. In this book, beautiful book, unfortunately not in English, by Rodolfo Galigares, The Moral Laws. It is in Portuguese, and you can actually Google and buy it. It's really interesting. He actually um, um, brings 2 chapters in terms of alms, right? The first thing that he will do, he will kind of break it down, giving alms in three ways: alms without charity, alms with charity, and charity without alms. And then he actually classify alms in terms of how we see in Spiritism. Alms for us is the thing that is giving, like money, food, medicine, clothing, and etc. While charity is essentially love, not love for ourselves, selfishness, but love for all others, altruism. And it was really interesting to find this idea of how things are giving, how elements are giving, right? Or whatever we want to describe, money or whatnot, or how we give of ourselves. Alms without charity. Do you think that's possible? That we can give something without charity? How? Give me an example. Things that are not good. So Dion is saying giving something that we don't need anymore, right? It can be, but the intention behind is still nice because you're giving something, right? But what if were to tell you, and we see this happening all the time, perhaps we have seen with ourselves, that we give something expecting something back, right? We have a hidden agenda saying, I'm going to give this, but I want to exalt myself or exalt, my surroundings, the people, whatever that is, right? Is that charitable, right? What if I were to ask for something back? Is that charitable? No. And then in the gospel according to Spiritism, we'll see that that we we go through these things, right? We're expecting something here. We're expecting recognition of something, right? Just like kids when they do something. No, I did it. Brothers and sisters sometimes they're like, I did this. Well, great, you did it, but you don't have to, pronounce to the whole world, right? It's nice to receive the confirmation or perhaps the acknowledgement that something happened, something was given, but that's not the point, right? What if we're doing something and we're diminishing the individual who is receiving, right? To show that we're in power, to show that we're in a position where greater than an individual. Is that charitable? We're giving alms. At the end of the day, we're helping, but that's not charitable because we're putting the other right below us. At least we're trying to. until we discarnate and we see reality. Where is that, that idea that we think that we're greater than the other? So there are many, many ways, but we have to be careful. And he really, really emphasized on these things, and he gives different classifications. And then we move on to alms with charity. What would it be, alms with charity? Anyone? Anyone who'd like to add alms with charity? Okay. Let's think about, what is that?
Yeah, so alms with charity,
With
right?
charity, yes.
So it would be like you bringing some, let's say, maybe some groceries to someone who is in need, and instead of going there dressed up super nice, as they say, to the nines, go humbly, go like an average Joe, to not make that person feel bad. But also, when you're bringing that food to that person, reminding them like, hey, today it's you, tomorrow it's me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm no better than you, vice versa. Today you're in this spot, tomorrow it could be me. Like, we're all equal. We're just helping each other out.
Very well. I just want to go back to one thing here. What's on chapter 13? The fourth bullet. Invite the poor and the lame, give without expecting recompense. As Kirsten's saying, we're going to that individual saying, look, I'm here as someone who can be on your position tomorrow. Not that I expect you to help me at all, but I can be there so I know, right? Most of the time when we go through these things, we go and do it, right? Well, bring that individual to your home. Let's have a talk, right? Yeah, I've been there, right? So it's definitely possible. And it goes back to also the idea of us giving without showing ourselves, without really, okay, I'm just going ahead and have an intermediary person to go and give whatever I would like to give, the alms that I would like to present, right? Charity without alms. Anybody would like to take a shot? Tolerance, okay. Charity without alms. Giving your time, okay. Listening, okay. Anyone else? Forgiving. What if somebody comes to you, or someone who, let's do this way, someone who needs help, right? Who perhaps just lost a job, or perhaps is struggling a little bit, and you identify on that person, right? That that person has a skill, speaks a different language, or perhaps knows how to tutor a specific science or whatever, right? And you say, you know what? Let me employ this person. Is that dignifying? Right? There's no idea of saying I'm giving you money. There's no idea where it's coming from. But you are employing that person. You're bringing the esteem of that person, saying, oh yes, I do have this skill. I would love to do that, right? And especially for something that I'm really right now in need of, which is an extra money. Or something else, we don't have to go through money, but say, let's go ahead and exchange these values over here of whatever we can offer, right? That too is when we start thinking on how we will be able to utilize our resources. Not to just go ahead and say, here's the money, which should happen, which is valuable, which is respectful, needs to happen more. But how can we utilize our resources that we have, right? And how we would like someone else to utilize our resources as well, right? When something is offered to us, let me give something back, right? Let me offer something back. right? So the coin flips both sides, right? Not only for someone who's giving, but also for us who are receiving too, because we have to put ourselves in both. Just like Kirsten said, we've been there, right? We bless you. We have been through situations in our lives that render us to think about these things. But let us think about what we're giving and how we're giving, right? The both, the what and the how there. The To give continuation to this, we would like to bring this passage of the gospel according to Spiritism when we study at the need for charity according to Paul. Many of you have seen this, and many of you have studied and read and seen. It's beautiful because there are many plaques that you can put at home. I think it's one of the best passages of the gospel, that the Apostle Paul saying, talking about love, and it is with this, and this is just excerpt from the gospel according to Spiritism, that we understand truly what caritas is, right? The charity is, right? It's the love in action that we learn in Spiritism. And he says the following: charity is patient, it is kind and benevolent, charity is not envious, it is not rash or hurried, it is not full of pride, it's not scornful, it does not look after its own interest, it does not take offense or become upset by anything, it does not suspect evil, it does not rejoice in injustice, but it rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes for all things, and endures all things. If we take each of these passages of this amazing verse here, charity is patient. The moment that we give something expecting something back fast, or the idea, let me take that back. I was wrong with what I just said. The moment that we give something we're expecting, that is wrong in itself, right? But think about, I'm by this charity, by this, I hope to see, let's say I employ someone and I hope to see this person better tomorrow or a month from now. It's not charity, because charity is patient. It doesn't expect anything, right? And the more we get into it, right? If we're doing because we are envious that someone else is giving and we want to give as well, then there is a hidden agenda. So charity is not envious. And choose another one. We can go through each of them, but I hope you get the point. There is no it does not look after its own interest. It cannot be for our own interest. The moment that we're giving something, the moment that we are allowing ourselves to say, I'm doing this because I have this idea that I'm going to get something back, or perhaps the person's going to get better, or whatever that is. No, there's no personal interest. So when we go back and we think about charity, are we in one of these passages over here? Is our charity believing in all things? Is it hoping for all things? Is enduring all things as well? For me, when I had that click thinking about what charity is, right? What charity, let's say, ought to be, I was like, wow. Because many times when I give, even to my kids, I'm not going to lie, we expect them to recognize it. We expect them to do the best that they can to say, you know what? I understand what my father's doing. I understand what my mother's doing, right? I hope people understand what the spirit side of Baltimore is doing. I can't expect, and I'm including this myself into this in this matter, because it is something that we have to rethink on how we are giving. No matter if we're giving the 2 coins or whatever that is, no matter if we're giving our time, as we said here, no matter if we're being patient, but what are we expecting? And quite frankly, society nowadays, we're expecting something, right? Yes, there is a beautiful code with, with our tax system that if we give and you give into a nonprofit organization, you will get your tax deduction, this and this and that. It's a beautiful thing that we can do, and I think that is definitely it stimulates more that we're giving and to give more. There are many very wealthy individuals or groups of people in the U.S. and around the world that they give, right, with that that idea behind their, that, or let's say, thinking that that's also something that's going to help them, and that is amazing. I'm not saying please don't stop, right? But then we have to think, because if we flip the coin again and say, what if I was the one receiving? How would I feel knowing that the person is not giving really with their hearts, but with a hidden agenda? But with a hidden agenda. So just something for us to think about it, because every time I read this and I found beautiful, and I still find it beautiful, but now now it truly has a different connotation, because it's like, is my charity being kind and benevolent, right? Or do I feel forced to do so, right? Nobody likes to do anything when we are forced, right? Just something for us to think about it. And this is again on chapter 15. It's not on the actual chapter that we find the widow's mite, but on chapter 15, the two chapter after, as we showed at the beginning. Giving continuation to the gospel according to Spiritism, the protector spirit, through this message, he actually starts or goes on to the idea of many individuals going to him and saying that, I don't have much to give. I don't have anything to give to others, right? And it is a fallacy that we create within for ourselves, and as an excuse as well, because we can practice that charity in thought, word, and in deed as well. I'm not going to read the whole thing, even though it's a beautiful passage as well for us to go through. But I just highlighted the three areas there, right? We recently lost a family member. I shouldn't say lost, but the family member discarnated, and it was not expected at all. It's not that expecting somebody perhaps to discarnate will make any better, because that person will be ever missed. But it's one of those things that's like, what happened, right? It's like you walk and somebody just pushes aside, and you're like, okay, what happened here? And the whole family is like disoriented of what's happening. And the interesting thing that I was thinking is like, I have nothing to offer. There's nothing I can do. I'm in a different country, right? Miles and miles away. And it's those moments that you think, but I have the power of a word, right? I can say I'm here. I can talk to you if you needed to, right? I can put the person's name on the book of prayer, right? I can ask others to pray as well, and through my deeds, right? Through my deeds. How? Treating perhaps the persons, the individuals that are near me, that perhaps can also, or they do, or they serve the same way as that individual did. If we talking about a brother, treat someone else as a brother, right? If we perhaps lost a loved one as a parent, treat someone else that you see as a parent well as well, right? And the deeds and the charity goes on and on and on. And that also perhaps will help the individuals who have gone to the other side and who are seeing this and who are happy to see that we are giving continuation to their lives. Not that we're not missing them, but we're not holding them back and cry and not doing anything positively to help them. But the idea is to show that we can be charitable, whichever way possible. Many of the cases that we are here, in many instances that we're here, perhaps about to start the passes, when we were in our different meetings, especially our treatment meetings on Mondays, we always remind one another, yes, we're here to receive, but we also can give a little bit of ourselves, right? The dynamo of energy that we are, the conditions that we have that perhaps that my neighbor does not have is immense. Just to think that the individual next to me, in front of me, behind me, they're going through a tough moment right now. Perhaps it's greater or tougher than I am right now, right? So I'm better off. So at this moment, I'm going to pray. Knowing that we will receive, yes, that we came here to receive. God already knows. Yeah, true. God already knows that the person also what the other person needs. But if we pray for one another, if we give a little bit of ourselves, it's the same thing, or it makes it better, right? I'm really having trouble with this. Maybe I should put this way. Yes. All right. Now, um, moreover, and this is a passage that I would like to read. This actually is on a couple items before item 6, and this is Kardec saying, moreover, is gold the only thing that can dry tears, and must one remain inactive by not possessing it? And then the answer is, those who sincerely desire to be useful to their brothers and sisters will find 1,000 opportunities. Let them seek, and they will find them. If not in one way, then in another, for there are none who, enjoying the full use of their faculties, cannot render some sort of service, provide some consolation, mitigate physical or mental suffering, or do something useful. In spite of a lack of money, cannot everyone give a portion of the effort, time, and repose they have available? This is also the obol, or I'm saying it's obol of the poor, the widow's mite. We all have a little to give of ourselves, and not necessarily in most cases. I would say most cases, because it's very easy for us to look at a situation of someone needs something, a physical resource, right? Food, money, whatever. Most of us, we are lacking what? Affection, right? We need help. We need attention, right? We need that care to say, it will be okay. Or to say, are you kidding me? Get up and move, right? I remember the tough moments of Dona Flavia, for the ones that I'll say Dona Flavia because some of you may know her, or my mother, right? That she had to look at us and say, get up and move. Just do it. And that was the tough love, right? That I look back now, I'm like, oh gosh, get up and move. Right? I go back to those moments, it's like, yeah, it's tough today. I don't want to do this, I don't want to do, but you have to do it. It's that energy that comes inside of us and say, you gotta do it, right? There's nobody else to take care of that for you. You're it. Right? That's the job that you asked for. And then go on, right? Sometimes it's not just saying, oh, poor you, poor that, because that will probably make us stay in bed, right? No, we don't want that. We want to get up. And sometimes we need those individuals. We need somebody who's not giving us the physical resources, but that push, right? Or let's talk about it. Let's analyze, what can we do? Or what can you do better? Because sometimes it's not giving the answer, even though we may know, we may have been through the same situation. We know how that person can get out of it, but we ask, just as Jesus did, not obviously in the way he did exactly, but to ask, to bring out of the individual what is important for them to live a better life, right? But again, Kardec bringing to us that there's no such a thing that we don't have any opportunity to help others because we don't have any money, and because sometimes money is not what we're lacking, right? I thought it was going to help, but it didn't. To finalize, folks, Sister Rosalie in Paris 1860 said the following: analyzing material charity and moral charity. This is extremely important, right? We all know, we already mentioned here, it's very easy for us to understand material charity. But she says the following: moral charity consists in giving support to one another, and it is what you practice the least on the low order world where you are incarnated for now. Believe me, there's great merit in knowing how to keep quiet and let a more ignorant person speak. Parenthesis here. We're not talking about ignorant person in the sense that the person is malicious or bad or anything like that. We're talking about not knowing any better. Okay? And I lost myself. Ignorant person speak. This is yet another kind of charity. Knowing how to turn a deaf ear when a mocking word escapes the mouth accustomed to scorn, not paying attention to the smirk of disdain that greets your entry amongst persons who often wrongly think they are above you, whereas in the spirit life, the only true life, they are sometimes far from it. These are meritorious acts not of humility, but of charity. Because not paying attention to someone else's wrongs portray moral charity. There it is. If anything, if we can close this in a way where we are, how can I be charitable or most charitable, right? It's looking at an individual and saying, we're all growing, right? And yes, and the example here can be sometimes situation where the person maliciously is acting against us or towards us, right? But we look at it and say, it's okay, give that person time. That individual will learn, just as I learned, and just as I have many other things to learn as well. And this is exactly when we bring the information at the beginning in terms of the ingratitude of kids, right? We know that they're reincarnating spirits. At least we learn through spiritism that they're reincarnating spirits, and perhaps we have met in the past, and that is a chance for us to make amends, right? Or perhaps of something that we have done, and they're so they don't understand yet the magnitude of that encounter, right? And we receive the ingratitude for them, right? We receive that I don't care what you're providing, or this or that, is giving it to me freely, right? And we look at it and it's like, okay, because one day, hopefully, they will become parents as well, and they will learn. It's one of the, let's call it the the greatest homework we can have as parents, right? That we look at it's like, oh gosh, I wish this was different, right? Or sometimes we take back as well, and we remember the moments that we did not acknowledge well, to say not to say other things what our parents have given it to us, right? So it's pretty difficult. But here's just an example for us to look at it and think. And I hope also that when we look at these 3 chapters, we will see things a little bit different now in terms of what we're giving and how we're giving, right? In terms of how we can be the widow and give what we have, right? So here's the question that we have shared here many times, and we're going to continue to share, because I don't think we get it yet. And if you get upset with me, that's okay. But I don't think none of us get to the full extent of the answer of this question. And I speak mainly for myself. But what is the true meaning of the word charity as Jesus understood? Question 886. And the Spirit says, benevolence towards everyone, indulgence towards the imperfection of others, and forgiveness for offenses. If we have to give anything, right? Are we being benevolent? The same thing as we can do as we did with the passage of Paul, we can do here. When we're giving, are we being indulgent enough of the imperfections of someone? Are we forgiving the offenses? You give once and you are repaid with ingratitude. Are you going to give it again? Probably not, right, Kirsten? Kirsten is saying hi, and so probably not. I was like, yeah, I'll tell you. It's true. It is certainly true. It is true for me. I'm not bringing this thing that I exclude myself from this, but it's extremely tough. You do it once, guess what? It's going to happen again. So our defense mode is to say what? No, that ain't happening. Not in this world, not in my watch, right? So it's really hard for us to understand this. All the questions that I asked at the beginning, folks, right? It's not going to happen, by the way. Okay. Your money is still, you can check your checking account after we finish here, right? Through your mobile banking, whatever it is, right? Nothing is happening. But I want you to think one thing now. And this is, in a way, a sad question, but what if you were the widow with a sick child in the hospital? That the hospital is saying, in order for me to save your child, I need a, a crazy amount of money. How would you want everyone's checking account to look like when you know that you need that money? Not that you want anybody to lose money. I'm not saying that, right? It changed completely the the perspective, because now we're on the other side. Because as we saw, here it is actually, this picture here, the widow with the child, she has nothing. So what kind of charitable movement would you like to receive if your child is sick, or if you had just lost your job, right? Or if you had just lost your partner, right? How would you want that to be done towards you? Now we're flipping the coin, right? Now we see that the value is completely different. That even if someone to say, but Leo, I only have $10, it doesn't matter. That $10 is going to help somehow, right? That $10 is going to be $10 less than now that person will need to save that child, right? It's a different, the value of $10 becomes completely different. The same way that the 2 coins that she had was a fortune compared to the fortune of the other ones who were giving what they actually have extra, right? So let us think of value. Let us think of how important this is, not only in the sense of money, but also what is important for someone who's expressing themselves to us in terms of what they expect of life. Whether their expectancy can be a little bit off sometimes, right? But we respect, right? Because that is important for that individual. The same way that we like to be valued as well. The same way that our resources like to be valued, especially what we give out of ourselves, right? Because the money, we can make it. Tomorrow we go to work and hopefully it will be another paycheck, right? We can get a side job, but what we give of ourselves in terms of time, in terms of energy, right? Getting up early. The beautiful thing about the honor thy father and mother in that chapter is what Kardec actually reminds us in terms of the sleepless nights of the mothers. There's no way we can repay it, right? There's no way we can repay such a thing, even if we do it, because we don't know what they went through, right? So all of these things we have to, take in consideration. And perhaps if we're not there yet, one day we'll be, because reincarnation will bring us there. We have to go through these things. We have to go through these different insights in order for us to learn and ascend as a spirit. And the only way to do it is through charity. That is on what is on chapter 15. And that's what we wish as a homework for all of us to think about it and to read and to really digest. Make it part of your God at home, right? So remember this, reading the chapters. Make this parable, a reminder every time you are asked to give something. Again, not only monetarily, right, but also of yourself. If the boss comes to you, I need this more, I need that more, go walk the extra mile. Give freely what you freely receive, right? Which is the energy that we give every day. Yes, we have to eat. We have to, bring back the energy to us. But God is great and is immense. Doesn't ask. The sun will come up tomorrow again for all of us the same way, right? Some may see sunny a little bit better, whether it's cold or not, it doesn't matter. Sun will come up. The day will come up and it will be a clean slate for each one of us. So with that, folks, we hope that we have a different perspective, at least, of what the widow's mite is and how we can apply in our lives as well. I would like to briefly open for questions and comments that you may have, and so we can go to the second part of our meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. That was a great food for thought. This mic is going in and out for some reason. Definitely some food for thought. I'll save my comments for later. Comments, questions. Alba.
Hey, Leito, thank you for the great reminder, because there is no doubt if we are in this planet, it's because we need it, right? We need the reminder about charity, the true charity. And I love the perspective that you brought about how freely you give, freely you receive. I'm wondering, in your reading, in your research, if you found something about the receiver, actually the person, the attitude of the person who is receiving this, whatever it is, the time, the money, the because I believe we also need to learn to receive as we learn how to give. Can you give us ideas about it, please?
Yes, and that's why I highlighted chapter 14, because the the we don't know that, how to receive. We don't know how to humble ourselves to receive. We don't even know how to ask. Well, it's hard to say I need help, right? Especially men, from Latin America. And I want to say that. This reminds me of we were in shallow waters, okay, and we were some of us, let's say, of the group of people, my wife who was back there was a little bit worried that, oh my gosh, we're in the water, something's gonna happen. And then a boat passed by and said, "You guys need help?" I was like, "Nope," because I was like, "I'm not getting in that boat," right? And she was like, "You denied the help." I'm like, "Yes, I did. No, we're not getting over. We're gonna swim." But anyways, we're just jokes aside, it's like the pride sometimes speaks so loud, right? That we're like, we don't want to help, right? I don't want to ask for help, and truly we don't know, and truly we don't even know how to ask. So moving on to the next step, which is what you're saying, is to humble ourselves and say, I will accept this, and I'll do the best that I can with what I'm getting. It's difficult, right? Let alone the next step, which is to think that whatever I'm receiving was also conquered with great effort, right? That the person had to work extremely hard to get what they're giving it to me, whether it is extra or not. There was an effort put forth in order for them to receive what they received, and now it becomes my resource, right? So this is a great point, because we have to go back and understand what beneficence is a little bit more. It would be more of another two talks for us to just digest chapter 13, but for us to understand what that is, for us to understand the efforts that others are putting forth for us, right? When we get up in the morning, if we think about it, there's all the things that we have conquered, that we have created in our house, our surroundings. But the moment that we leave our houses, and I'm extrapolating a little bit because leaving our houses, we got help from someone else. But the road for us to get to work, the place, the brick and mortar, whatever that is, right? Other people worked a lot to get there, and we take for granted. Right? And everything else that we have, that we see, that we utilize, right? The clothes that we're utilizing right now, right? Someone else had to work hard, right? We know all the labor issues that we go through, um, you know, child abuse, this and this and that, and we take for granted, right? So thank you for the question, because it is on those three chapters. It is embedded in there, and I urge everyone to read it, and not only read it but study. Sit down, and if you have to read one passage 3 times or more, do so, because, like I said, it can be a lot of work for us to to get to the bottom of it, right? In that sense. But thank you.
Great, great response to that. Well, I'm speaking for you, Alba. Great response, Leo. If I could just add to that, I forget where. Maybe someone in the audience will remember, or Alba, maybe you remember somewhere in the text of Joanna. Could be Emmanuel. The only time I've ever heard it spoken about when we were, and forgive me for responding, um, the only time I've heard it speak, the only example that's ever been given that I recall in English as to how to react as the receiver of a benefit was when they reference to allow others to help you, because that is a charity. You are allowing them to give to you, so it's a mutual charity. And it makes me think sometimes, like, sometimes we don't need, we don't need help. Like, maybe we could get a little bit of help, but I'll do it myself, right? That's the mentality of a lot of I'm looking for the word. It's not foreigner of I don't remember the name, but of those who have come from, a different country. You come here and you want to work really hard, but it is a charitable thing to allow others to help you as well. So I've read that, and that's a learning, and that's hard to do. So
I'll add one thing too. It's the fact that this isn't the gospel according to Spiritism. I think is, I'm not gonna say it, but one of the spiritual benefactors that says, go and find out what other needs. Yeah, because sometimes we rush to say, oh, this person needs this. You don't know. And because the person does not know how to ask, I mean, invite the person to say, open up, and what do you need? Tell me what's going on, right? Have a frank conversation with that individual, or an open conversation, at least, that you say, let me see what's going on before I jump into hoops and say, this person needs this.
Leo, I think it's in the Spirit's book, and I think they say it's our duty to investigate. And forgive me again for being like being a partner here, but it's our duty, and I actually, that's what I was going to mention, but I was going to save it for later. It's our duty to investigate what that person actually needs. Is it oh,
she's hiding.
Sorry. So I said what I said already. I'm not going to repeat it, but yeah, it's our duty. It's our we have a responsibility to do the investigation. I'm paraphrasing into what an individual may need, because, like you already said, it might be a hug, it might be just listening, it might be a brigadero. We don't know. Anyone else? Questions, comments? Chris.
What if the person gets mad and you try to help them?
Chapter 14. Yeah, chapter 13 and 14, towards the end. And I'll read with you after we finish here. That will, instead of food, you're gonna get that. We're gonna read that.
No, it's just a comment. I think life teaches us a lot every day, and we think we know a lot, but life teaches so much. I don't think Kevin knows about it, but a few time ago we went to Tennessee and we got a flat tire. It wasn't. I mean, I guess something was wrong with the tire, so it kept going down, and we had to stop in a lot of gas stations in the middle of nowhere to put air on the tire, and it was $1, and we had to be 4 quarters. So we didn't have 4 quarters all the time, and there is no way else we could pay for it. So once we were like, we need really to put air on this tire to get to a place to fix the tire, and we stopped at a gas station, and I said, Kevin, I'm gonna go inside the store and cash the money or I'm gonna talk to the person there. So the cash machine wasn't working. When I was entering the store, someone came to me and said, you need anything? I said, yes, I'm like, need to put air on the tire and I don't have the 4 quarters. And she saw my desperate and the cash was not working. And I went to the lady at the store and I said, is that any way you can help me? Can I buy something? And then you give me the quarters as a change. no, we don't do that. I cannot do that. I said, okay. And then that person that asked me if I needed help, she came with 2 quarters and gave it to me and said, okay, I had that's what I have. Maybe, someone else can help you with the other two that you need. I went to the car with him. I said, Kevin, I got 2 quarters. Maybe we can find the other ones. Let's,
Laying around somewhere, right?
yeah, yeah. But when we tried and we didn't find the other quarters, and when I look back, the person that gave me the 2 quarters was one of those persons that stays on the door with a little can, asking for money. I guess she had the 2 quarters, but she probably had the money, but the money wasn't gonna help because it had to be quarters. So I went the whole trip back with that on my mind. Oh my gosh. And of course, I didn't return and gave it back to her. Okay, it didn't help me because I didn't have the other quarters. I just kept the quarters, but I kept the whole trip thinking about it. It's like we learn every day with small things in our life.
So here's my question, and it was that those 2 quarters worth 50 cents, right? Way more than 50 cents, right? Just for us to think, how. Yes, it is, and thanks for sharing this because it emphasizes the value, the true value of things, right? For somebody who works, 15 hours, now we're talking about even work, right? And they make $100, right? That $100 has a different value for someone who works for 2 hours and makes $100. Yes, I'm not discounting the fact that perhaps a person who works for 2 hours to make $100 did not go to school, and the intensity of the work that they're doing, that the energy they're putting forth is great, and perhaps they should be get paid $100 for 2 hours or $50 for an hour, right? But at the end of the day, we have to think that the value of things are completely different for each one of us, and for whatever we're going through, for whatever we have in our pocket, right? And that's why when we go back and we see those 2 coins, the value is immense, is immeasurable, right? In terms of that. So with that, I think, do we have anybody online, Daniel, or we're good? With that, we can close in. Kirsten, I think you had a question as well, or
No, I'm ready, sir.
you sure? Okay. Well, guys, thank you so much. And again, it is mainly a reminder for all of us, right? Hopefully, bringing new perspectives on how we can apply this in our lives. And we would like just to say a final short visualization and prayer. Kirsten, would you like to, since you're hiding over there? Don't put the lamp under the bushel, Kirsten.
All right, friends. Join me now in this closing visualization, prayer, this spiritual moment as we finalize this moment together, pondering the depths of the meaning of charity with gratitude in our hearts for our friend and brother and colleague, Leo, for sharing, putting together this presentation, and for all of us here